All I had to do was make physical contact with the campus queen, and my grades would jump 10 points. To get close to her, I followed her around every day, fawning over her, and became the school's most notorious simp. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore and warned me coldly, "You're so annoying. Can you please stay away from me? I'm begging you." Then, I discovered that touching the punk girl from the class next door had the same effect. I gave up on the campus queen and started chasing the punk girl, practically begging her to hit me. A month later, the campus queen finally broke, her eyes red. "I like you," she said. "Please, stop debasing yourself by chasing that rebel, okay?" A new transfer student joined our senior class at Northwood High. She was stunningly beautiful and aced her first monthly test, landing the top spot in our grade. But she had this gloomy, unapproachable vibe, so no one dared to get close to her. As a perpetual nobody, I figured our paths would never cross. But recently, I discovered that whenever I made physical contact with her, something good would happen. First, I accidentally brushed against her while walking by, and that evening I found a $10 bill on the ground. Then I tripped during PE, she helped me up, and the cafeteria lady gave me my lunch for free. That was all small stuff. Finding a few bucks isn't exactly hitting the jackpot. But then came the second monthly test. I was leaving the classroom with my pencil case when someone shoved me from behind. I stumbled and crashed right into Chloe Sterling. Chloe steadied me with one hand. "Easy there," she said. Her voice was cool and crisp, like a mountain spring. I hurried away, my face burning. I didn't think much of the little incident, but I was floored when the test results were posted. I had actually scored a 510. For context, ever since I started high school, I'd never broken 500 no matter how hard I studied. It was like a curse. But this time, the curse was broken. Terrified it was a mistake, I nervously recalculated my total score. It was real 510. I clutched my test paper, so thrilled I was on the verge of tears. To test my theory that my good luck was tied to Chloe, I decided to try again before the day ended. Chloe was so aloof it was hard to even speak to her, let alone make contact. I waited all afternoon but never got an opportunity. When the evening study hall ended, Chloe grabbed her bag and headed out. I frantically shoved my worksheets into my backpack, getting ready to follow her. But by the time I bolted out of the classroom, she had already vanished. The halls were a tidal wave of students rushing home, a blur of bodies streaming past. I couldn't find Chloe anywhere. To make things worse, some idiot had left a mop on the floor. I tripped over it, went down hard, and my phone skittered 6 feet across the hall. "My phone! Don't step on it, please!" I scrambled on my knees, my vision blurry, but no one paid me any mind. Then, a figure stopped in front of me. A guy beside her snickered. "Isn't that your little admirer, Olivia? Look at him, what a mess." The girl, Olivia, glanced down at me for 2 seconds before taking a cold step back. "What's it to me?" she said. She walked away with the guy as if nothing had happened. My breath hitched, a sour, bitter feeling twisting in my gut. Olivia Vance. She was my first love, the girl I'd had a crush on for ages. A month ago, I'd worked up the courage to confess to her. She'd looked down at me, ignoring the gift I offered, and asked, "What was your score on the last test?" "For 99, I'd mumbled. She'd smirked. "Sorry, I don't date dummies." I never expected her to be so cruel, and it broke my heart for a long time. A month had passed, and I thought I was over it, but what she just did was still humiliating. The guy with her was Liam Carter, the number 2 student in their class. I wondered if they were together. They seemed like a good match. People kept streaming past me. I took a deep breath, trying to pull myself together, and reached for my phone. A fair, slender hand got to it first. I looked up as the hand offered the phone back to me. As I reached for it, our fingertips brushed. In that exact instant, a loud thud echoed from the end of the hall. Liam's voice boomed across the corridor. "Olivia!" Olivia just totally face-planted. The next day at school, I walked past Olivia's classroom and saw her scowling by the window. I felt a secret thrill. Chloe was definitely my lucky charm. All I had to do was touch her, and good things would happen. I had to take advantage of this and find ways to make contact. Back in my seat, I started brainstorming how to get close to Chloe. I couldn't just rely on accidents. I needed to actually build some kind of rapport with her. During the break, Chloe was reading at her desk, and her desk mate happened to be gone. I casually wandered over and peeked at the book cover. Edgar Allan Poe. I knew him. This was my chance to find some common ground. I plopped down in the empty seat next to her. "Hey Chloe, you like Edgar Allan Poe too? You've got great taste. I love all his stories, especially My Uncle Jules. I've read it a ton of times." Chloe gave me a baffled look, said nothing, then closed her book. Was there something else? She asked coolly. Nope, just wanted to chat, I said. Sorry, I'm a little busy right now, she replied, her dark eyes completely unreadable. Busy my ass. She was reading for fun, but she was my lucky charm, so I couldn't exactly call her out. I grumbled internally, gave a polite smile, and retreated to my own desk. After sitting for a moment, I felt like something was off. Why wouldn't she like my Uncle Jules? I pulled out my phone and did a quick search. The author's name stared back at me in big, bold letters, Guy de Maupassant. My first attempt at a conversation was a total disaster. I was too embarrassed to approach her again. Then the results of our weekly quiz came out, and I stared at my score, 510, a cold sweat breaking out on my back. Without the boost from Chloe's genius aura, my grades were stuck again. This couldn't continue. I bought a boba tea, planning to give it to Chloe, but it felt so awkward. I'll do it at lunch, I decided. When lunch came, I chickened out again. I'll do it this afternoon. By the time afternoon rolled around, the boba was warm and gross. In the evening, Chloe was playing volleyball in the gym. The stands were packed with spectators, with big groups of guys cheering for their favorite girls. This was the perfect opportunity. I bought a bottle of water from the vending machine and squeezed through a gap in the crowd. I ended up next to a bunch of guys from the other senior class. Liam Carter glanced at me and then pointedly ignored me. Look, Olivia already shot him down, but he still won't give up, one of them muttered. Let's just watch the show, see if she even acknowledges him. I had to pretend I couldn't hear them, squinting as I searched the court for Chloe. The game ended, and the players started walking toward the sidelines. Olivia headed right for me, pausing when she saw me. Her eyes flicked to the water bottle in my hand. You again? She asked. I froze, just now realizing I'd subconsciously bought a peach-flavored sparkling water. It was Olivia's favorite. I used to buy one for her after every game. I had just grabbed it from the machine out of habit, without even thinking. It definitely looked bad. I gripped the bottle tightly and said stiffly, Don't flatter yourself. It's not for you. Really? Whatever you say, she said with a smirk, turning to walk over to Liam. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the good-looking couple laughing together. Their voices were just loud enough for me to overhear. Looks like someone still hasn't given up, Liam said. What's it to me? Olivia replied. I told you, I don't waste my time on dummies. Calling me a dummy every chance she got. She was so full of herself. I took a deep breath and looked right at Olivia. She met my gaze, her expression still condescending. One day, I declared, I'm going to show you who the real dummy is. She looked stunned for a second, surprised I dare talk back to her. Then she quickly turned away to talk to someone else, not even bothering to reply. I wasn't angry. I just turned and ran toward Chloe. My priority was improving my scores, not wasting energy on people like Olivia. For some reason, all the other girls on our class team were sitting on the floor, drinking water and chatting. Only Chloe was walking off the court alone, looking dejected. No one offered her a towel or water. No one even spoke to her. I had to sprint to catch up, handing her the bottle, slightly out of breath. She seemed surprised and, after a moment, shook her head. Just take it, I insisted, pressing it into her hand. She glanced down at the sparkling water and, this time, she didn't refuse. Thanks, she said quietly. No problem. I actually came to watch you play, I said. A breeze swept through the gym, rustling the damp strands of hair on her forehead. Chloe watched me for a moment, her expression unreadable. It's over, she said. What's over? I glanced back and saw them taking down the scoreboard. Our class had lost to the other team by 10 points. No wonder Chloe looked so down. It's not your fault, I called out. When I turned back, Chloe was already halfway down the hall. I hurried to catch up. It's not your fault, I repeated. You were just filling in. The loss has nothing to do with you. She didn't answer, just kept walking silently. Have you eaten yet? We could grab a bite together. She ignored me. How about I bring you breakfast tomorrow? There's this place near my house with amazing cronets. She was getting annoyed. She stopped walking. Look, what do you want? I stopped too. I just think you're really cool, and I wanted to be friends. Let's get to know each other. I'm Ethan Miller. She took a sharp breath, her tone icy. I know who you are, Ethan. And for the record, I don't need friends. Can I go now? How can anyone not need friends? I said with a goofy, sycophantic grin. Fine, then I'll just unilaterally decide we're friends. How about that? She probably decided I was a lost cause, because she just sighed and walked away, her pace quickening. I chattered away as I followed her to the equipment room by the gym. She went inside to get her bag, but it was too crowded for me to squeeze in, so I finally shut up and waited outside. A few girls from our grade were leaning against the wall, laughing at me. "You're not actually trying to hit on Chloe, are you?" one asked. I didn't know them, and the sudden question flustered me. "What? No. Can't a classmate just be nice?" The girl smirked. "I'd stay away from her if I were you. Do you have any idea why she transferred schools?" I shook my head. "Never mind then. Just know this. She's a total jinx. Whoever gets close to her ends up with bad luck. Every single person who's been her friend has had something terrible happen to them. But hey, if you don't believe me, go ahead and find out for yourself." The girl slung her bag over her shoulder and walked off, laughing with her friends. I just stood there, watching them go, a heavy feeling settling in my stomach like a stone, churning everything up. When I turned around, I saw Chloe was already there. I had no idea how long she'd been standing there or if she'd heard what those girls said. I froze, completely at a loss for words. Chloe glanced at me, silently slung her bag over her shoulder, and looked down, her expression completely veiled. "Please stop following me," she said. She turned and walked toward the school gate, against the evening breeze. Her silhouette looked so lonely, like a speck of dust about to be blown away. I suddenly felt like I couldn't just let her walk away like that. Chloe. I didn't know what happened at her old school, but I knew one thing. Getting close to her didn't bring bad luck, it brought good luck. She was a good omen. I yelled after her retreating figure. "I'll bring you a cronut tomorrow morning." She hesitated for a second but didn't turn around, just melting into the crowd. The next morning, I waited in a ridiculously long line to get a fresh, warm cronut. I sprinted into the classroom, where Chloe was already at her desk. I handed her the pastry bag, panting. "For you," I said. "The cronut." A low "oh" rippled through the classroom. I ignored it and kept my eyes on Chloe. She hesitated, not taking the bag, and started rummaging in her desk for a book without even looking at me. I felt my face get hot, but I kept holding out the bag. "They're really good," I whispered. "You should try one." A long, awkward silence followed. She finally pulled out a textbook, opened it, and looked at me with a slight frown. I said I don't want it. I looked into her eyes, and the rejection was absolute, leaving no room for argument. "I waited in line for an hour to get it," I mumbled, my pride stinging. I finally pulled my hand back with an awkward smile. The bell for morning study rang. I scrambled back to my seat, quickly pulled out my English textbook, and started reading aloud just as our homeroom teacher walked in. After he left, I put the book down and squeezed the pastry bag in my hand, a headache forming. Chloe was so difficult to figure out. A few girls nearby started nudging each other and giggling. "Ethan, are you trying to date Chloe?" one of them asked. I glanced up, wanting to explain but deciding it wasn't worth the effort, so I just stayed quiet. They all burst out laughing. "You've actually got the guts to go after her? Bold move. Who'd even want a stupid cronut anyway?" Another one sneered. "If you tried to win me over with that, I'd ignore you too." I felt a flash of anger. "Who said I was trying to win you over? I wouldn't want you even if you were chasing me." I wanted to argue more, but I just bit my lip and stared down at my textbook. The truth is, I was always the smart kid growing up, at the top of my class all through elementary and middle school. But in high school, even though I understood all the material, I'd always lose points on tests for no reason. I became that dummy who never gets better no matter how hard he tries. It felt like I was always just a little short on luck. My desperate attempts to get close to Chloe were all for the sake of borrowing some of hers. I guess my clumsy efforts just looked pathetic to everyone else. Thinking about it all, a wave of sadness washed over me. I bit my lip, and a tear splashed onto my hand. I didn't even notice that the girls around me had suddenly gone silent. Then, a clear voice came from right above me. "What are you crying for?" I looked up, startled. Chloe was standing right beside my desk, looking down at me. A light rain drizzled outside, and she was silhouetted against the window, blocking the light. Her face was half in shadow, her expression impossible to read. "It's nothing," I said, quickly wiping my eyes. She didn't press, just sighed. Her gaze fell to the pastry bag in my hand. "You waited in line for an hour?" I nodded meekly. "Give it to me, then." I was surprised, but she looked serious. For some reason, my heart started pounding. I hesitantly handed her the bag. She took it, her voice even. "Thank you." Chloe ate my cronut. I knew it. She was just cold on the outside but warm on the inside. During the next break, I sat in the back row, watching from a distance as she nibbled on the pastry while working on problems. I was so thrilled I could feel my pulse racing. The moment her desk mate left his seat, I hurried over. "Hey, Chloe." She looked up, startled. "Is there something else?" "Nope." "Was the cronut good?" She nodded. "Want me to bring you another one tomorrow?" She clearly didn't want to talk, but she patiently declined. No, thank you. Okay, I'll bring you something different then. Really, you don't have to. It's no trouble at all. We're friends now, you can't say that. Chloe gripped her pen and sighed, probably regretting ever taking that coronet from me. She held back her annoyance and said, if you don't have anything else, maybe you should go back to your seat and rest. I'm not tired. I came over specifically to talk to you. Just to ask if the coronet was good? Well, not entirely, I said. Under the desk, I held out my hand, my eyes full of hope. Can we shake on it? The quiz was that afternoon. If I didn't get a handshake in, it would be too late. The quiz results came back, 520. I stared at my paper with tears in my eyes, then looked at the back of Chloe's head. I looked and looked again, feeling incredibly satisfied. From that day on, I brought Chloe water, snacks, and fawned over her constantly. As usual, she mostly ignored me, but she never actively pushed me away. I secretly wondered if maybe she was just playing hard to get and didn't actually dislike me. Thanks to Chloe's genius aura, my scores kept improving with every test. After 2 more quizzes, I was up to 530, and on the 3rd major test of senior year, I hit 540. After every big test, the school posted an honor roll on the main bulletin board with the top 100 students in the grade. Chloe was at the top again with a 708, and I had actually made it to 98th place. It was the first time I'd ever seen my name on that list. I stood there, excitedly tracing my name with my finger, not wanting to leave. A moment later, I heard a voice that soured the mood. He made the list? It was Liam. I didn't have to guess. I knew Olivia would be with him. I turned and, sure enough, there she was. She was staring at her own name with a sour expression. She had dropped to 18th place. It's okay, Olivia. It was just one slip-up, Liam said. Her face was grim as she looked over at me, her eyes looking a little dull, before she quickly dropped her gaze and walked away. My progress was insane. By the 4th major test, I shot up to 590. I felt my mind getting sharper. Before, difficult problems felt like they were shrouded in fog, but now it was like a wind had blown the fog away, making the solutions crystal clear. My teachers were stunned by my improvement. They were too polite to accuse me of cheating outright, but they started randomly calling me to the board to solve problems. After I nailed it every time, they finally had to accept that my scores were legitimate. Not only that, but the other students' attitudes toward Chloe started to change too. The rumor was that my rapid improvement was because I was absorbing her genius vibes. As a result, a few people started cautiously approaching her to ask for help with homework. Her previously empty desk started to have people around it. She was still reserved, but she never turned down anyone who asked for help. After the 4th test, it was time to choose new seats, and I still preferred my spot in the back row. I asked Chloe, "Want to sit in the back row with me? I'll make you the official row captain." She gave me a flat look and refused instantly. But after I sat down, she moved her own desk to the empty spot right next to me. I stared at her in surprise, but she just ignored me and calmly worked on her practice problems. Well, I thought you said no," I teased. Without looking up, she said, "If you have time to talk nonsense, you have time to do another problem set. I'm working on it. Just you wait, I'll surpass you one day." "All right," she said. "I'll be waiting." For a split second, I thought I saw the corner of her mouth twitch into a smile, but it was gone so fast I figured I must have imagined it. Before evening study hall, my friend Caleb Jones, who went to University High next door, came by with 2 boba teas. He plopped down in Chloe's empty seat and complained about his recent heartbreak. When he was done, he asked, "So, what's the deal with you and that Chloe girl?" I sipped my boba, feeling a little guilty. "What? Who's Chloe? Never heard of her." "Don't play dumb," he said with a wink. "I've heard the rumors. The whole school is talking about it. Are you going after Chloe just to make Olivia jealous? That's ridiculous. As if she's worth the effort." "Whoa, touchy. Looks like I hit a nerve." "No, you didn't. It's not like that at all. Just thinking about Olivia made me feel pathetic." I crushed the empty boba cup in my hand and tossed it in the trash. I didn't notice the figure that paused for a moment by the back door before slipping away. After Caleb left, I worked on a couple of English practice sections. Chloe didn't come back to the classroom until right before study hall started. It was dark outside by then. She stepped from the shadows of the hallway into the light of the classroom, and for some reason, she seemed to be in a terrible mood, a dark cloud hanging over her. "What's wrong?" I whispered. "Nothing," she said without looking at me, silently rummaging through her locker. I figured she must have run into those nasty girls again. They'd been bothering her on and off for a while. Not wanting to push my luck, I just quietly placed a lollipop on her desk and went back to my own work. Something was off with Chloe. She was distracted and even more dismissive of me than usual. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it was different. The next day, during the long morning break, a crowd of students was gathered around the bulletin board, looking at the new honor roll. Chloe was out on the second-floor balcony, leaning against the railing and lazily flipping through her English notes. The sun lit up one side of her face, creating a soft halo around her hair. I shamelessly went over and begged her to come look at the rankings with me. She seemed impatient. There's nothing to see. Easy for you to say. I've barely ever made the list. Come on, just come with me. I'm busy, she said, frowning as she turned a page. Come on, let's take a walk. A little exercise will put you in a better mood. I couldn't convince her. Instead, an unwelcome figure appeared beside us. I turned my head and saw Olivia. For the first time ever, she wasn't looking down her nose at me. Her eyes were fixed on Chloe with a curious, searching expression. I had no idea what she wanted, but it was a total mood killer. My smile vanished. Is there something you need? Nothing, she said, pulling her gaze away from Chloe and giving me a small smile. I just saw you ranked 38th this time. I wanted to say congratulations. I gave a cool smile back. Thanks. I had no intention of continuing the conversation. Maybe my coldness put her off, because she hesitated for a second. But then she pressed on. Do you want to grab dinner tonight? We could go to that place we used to like. Back when I was crushing on her, I'd used a mutual friend to tag along for dinner with her group once. She barely acknowledged my existence then, but now she was asking me out. Just because I wasn't the dummy she thought I was anymore. She was suddenly being nice? Her kindness felt so cheap. No thanks, I'm pretty busy, I said. Wanting to end the conversation, I deliberately leaned closer to Chloe, close enough to be easily misinterpreted. I shot a worried glance at Chloe, relieved and grateful that she didn't call me out. Olivia's expression froze when she saw this. After a moment, she gave an awkward laugh, her eyes losing their light. Sorry to bother you, she said, turning to leave. Chloe had been watching my little performance with the cool detachment of a bystander. But as soon as Olivia was gone, her expression hardened. Can you get away from me now? I snapped back to reality and quickly took a couple of steps back. Sorry about that girl. I'm not interested, she cut me off, snapping her notebook shut. Her eyes were filled with an irritation she could no longer hide. Can you just stay away from me from now on? You're really annoying. I was stunned. I'd never seen that look in her eyes before. It was cold and filled with utter weariness. It scared me. I'm sorry, I stammered. It's not just today. It's always, she said, her face turning to ice. I just want to be left alone. Can you please stay away from me? I'm begging you. I just stared at her, dumbfounded. Chloe, what's wrong? I think I've made myself clear, she said, looking completely fed up. She stood up to head back to the classroom, but paused after a few steps and turned back. And by the way, she added, your cronets are actually pretty gross. So she thought my cronets were gross? That one really hit me where it hurt. I stood there for a long time, my mind a complete blank. When the bell rang, I went back to my seat. She was right there next to me, but it felt like we were miles apart. I wanted to talk to her, but she kept herself busy, and I couldn't find an opening. After a while, I finally gave up. I had really thought she was starting to accept me, but I guess that was just my imagination. The truth was, she'd just been tolerating me, the same way she tolerated those gross cronets. She liked being alone, she liked her own world, and I had selfishly forced my way into it just to leech off her good luck, completely ignoring her feelings. It was incredibly self-centered of me. I didn't bother her for the rest of the day. The next evening, during study hall, I skipped dinner and just sat at my desk, grinding through math problems. Chloe and I hadn't spoken in a day and a half. The only way I could quiet my mind was to keep working. A commotion started in the hallway, and I heard the people near me whispering, "Hey, look, you think he's here for Chloe? For sure. I heard they used to date." I froze and looked up. It was Julian Hayes, a top student and the most popular guy from the magnet school across town. He was so well known that even I had heard of him. I just never knew he had a history with Chloe. There was a soft knock on the back door. "Excuse me," a voice said. I turned to see the tall, handsome guy smiling gently. "Is Chloe Sterling here?" Standing in front of him, I felt incredibly drab and insignificant. I shook my head. "She went to get dinner." He held out a small, gift-wrapped box. The card on top read, "Happy birthday." I hesitated for a second before taking it from him. So today was her birthday. It was true then. I had never really been a part of her world. I didn't even know her birthday. What kind of friend was I? Her friends were top students, popular guys, not someone like me. A sharp pang of sadness hit my chest. Chloe returned during study hall. I held out the gift box to her. This is from Julian. She looked surprised for a moment before taking it, her expression as cool and distant as ever. Thanks. No problem. Happy birthday, I said. I forced a smile. And, I'm really sorry about everything before. I was being selfish and totally ignored how you felt. It won't happen again. She froze, gripping her pen tightly, but she didn't look at me or say anything. A gust of wind blew the back door open with a bang, letting in a blast of cold air. Geez, this stupid door, I muttered, quickly getting up to close it and giving a dry laugh. Since Chloe wasn't talking, I just quietly pulled out my review notebook and got back to studying. The second the final bell rang, Chloe was gone. I stayed and finished one more math problem before packing up and heading home. The school was nearly empty, and the cold winter wind felt like a knife against my face. I thought bitterly, without Chloe's good luck, were my scores going to stagnate again? I wondered if just stepping on her foot would work, but after our fight, I'd be too embarrassed to do that. It would be so rude. Just as I was lost in thought, I walked straight into a human wall. I looked up and was blinded by a shock of bleached blonde hair. Whoa, watch where you're going, the girl said, raising an eyebrow. When she saw it was me, she smirked. Well, if it isn't Chloe's little puppy dog. I recognized her. She was a rebel from the other senior class, always causing trouble. The only reason she was still in the honors track was because her family had connections. I tried to walk past her, but she blocked my path. She grinned maliciously. Cat got your tongue? I guess it's true, birds of a feather flock together. You've got the same miserable look as her. Couldn't stand it. Who are you talking about? The blonde smirked, raising an eyebrow. What? Can't I talk about her? Why are you so protective of that jinx? Her words stung. I clenched my fists, and a surge of courage made me glare right back at her. Yeah, I am. So what? You think you're so cool with your bleached hair and your punk attitude? You're not even fit to lick Chloe's boots. Her smile vanished. What did you just say? I said, you're not fit to lick her boots. You're asking for a beating, she snarled, grabbing the front of my shirt. I heard footsteps, and one of her friends ran up. Roxy, they're here. Another guy swaggered over. Yo, what's going on? Am I interrupting something? I kept my eyes locked on the blonde, whose name was apparently Roxy. I was terrified, but I refused to back down. If she was going to be aggressive, so was I. Roxy glared at me, then shoved me hard to the ground. You're lucky, she spat, before turning and walking off with her crew. Only after they were gone did my legs start to feel like jelly. I sat slumped against the wall, my heart still pounding with fear. The streets were mostly empty now. Because of that run-in with Roxy, I'd missed the last bus home. I hugged my backpack to my chest and wiped at my eyes. I heard the click-clack of high heels approaching. You poor thing, a woman's voice said. Here, buy yourself something to eat, kid. I looked up just in time to see her sashay into a luxury car and speed off. A wad of cash had fallen from where she'd tucked it into my arm. I picked up the bills one by one, completely stunned. All this money just for a snack? I swear, rich people are on another planet. I shot to my feet, watching the car disappear down the street, when a strange thought hit me. How was I having this kind of bizarre good luck again? I definitely hadn't touched Chloe today. We'd barely even made eye contact. Could it be Roxy? The thought was terrifying, but I had to test the theory. If getting roughed up by the punk girl also triggered good luck, then I wouldn't have to bother Chloe anymore. I might get my ass kicked, but if it meant getting good grades, I'd take the hits. The next day, I staked out Roxy's routine and cornered her as she was leaving school after study hall. Hey, Blondie, I yelled. Roxy froze, staring at me in disbelief, probably wondering where I got the nerve. I came to find you today just to tell you that you're not fit to lick Chloe's boots. I knew that line would get under her skin. Sure enough, she grabbed my collar, her expression furious. Are you insane? Hit me. I dared her. You really think I won't? Then do it. Roxy visibly restrained herself, a vein throbbing on her forehead. Finally, with a growl, she just shoved me away. I stumbled and fell, and my phone clattered to the pavement, the corner of the screen cracking. You're a psycho, she yelled. I'm not stooping to your level. You're shaking like a leaf. I'm letting you off today. Get lost, or I swear I'll beat you up every time I see you. Roxy irritably slung her bag over her shoulder as her friends walked up. Roxy, what's up? One of them asked, trying to curry favor. Nothing. Let's go, she snapped. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding, slumping against a telephone pole, still shaken. Are you kidding me? My phone screen cracked? This is terrible luck. I knew it. How could provoking that punk girl bring anything good? You've been watching too many rom-coms. a woman screamed. I looked up, dumbly watching a couple fighting in front of me. The woman sneered, "Love doesn't pay the bills, you idiot." The man, his eyes red, started to walk away, looking completely broken. But after a few steps, he spun around in a rage, pulled off his expensive boots, his watch, and his gold chain, and threw them all at my feet. "Here, take it all back." The woman stood in silence for a moment, a bitter, tearful smile on her face, before getting into her own luxury car and speeding off. I just stared, then slowly bent down and picked up the heavy, glittering watch and chain. This felt real. Was this actual gold? "Roxy, you're a freaking money magnet." The next day, the seat beside me remained empty. Chloe didn't come to school. I didn't know why, and I didn't know who to ask. My heart felt as empty as her chair all day long. Since I was in a bad mood, I figured I had to go find Roxy to make up for it. Right before the last period, I pushed open the door to her classroom. The noisy room fell silent as everyone turned to stare at the grim-faced stranger in their doorway. I pointed to the back row. "Hey, you blondie, don't you go anywhere after school. Meet me in the alley out back." Roxy, who had been sipping a boba, was so startled she squeezed the cup, and it popped. The classroom was dead silent for a second, and then it exploded with noise. "Who is that guy? He's challenging Roxy?" The room was buzzing, and everyone was staring at me like I was some kind of freak show. I gave them a cool glance, then turned and calmly walked back to my own class. By the end of the period, the news of my duel with Roxy had spread throughout the grade. When school let out, a crowd from her class was waiting to see the show. I slung my backpack on and casually strolled into the alley. I had put her on the spot, so she had no choice but to show up. A few minutes later, she appeared at the mouth of the alley, her usual crew trailing behind her. She tossed her bag to one of them. "You guys wait here," she ordered, then stalked toward me, her face grim. "All right, what do you want?" she demanded. "I just came to tell you that you're not fit to." I didn't even get to finish. She grabbed my collar. I said one bad thing about her. "Are you really this obsessed?" I gritted my teeth. "Unless you apologize to Chloe, I'm going to come find you and say this to your face every single day." "Are you out of your mind? You think I'm going to apologize to her? You want me to beat the crap out of you? Then do it. You really think I won't?" She slammed me hard against the brick wall. The impact knocked the wind out of me, and I let out a grunt. Roxy froze for a second, then shoved me away. She ran a hand through her hair in frustration and stormed out of the alley. After getting roughed up by Roxy, the money just kept rolling in. As long as I held on to this golden goose, life was a breeze. On the third day, I used the same tactic to provoke her again. I caught her alone after school and blocked her path. "Hey, blondie, you again?" she groaned. "That's right, you're not fit to lick Chloe's boots. So hit me." "I can't be bothered with you," Roxy said, turning to leave. I grabbed her shirt. "Hit me." Roxy finally snapped. She looked completely frazzled as she shoved me away violently. I fell to the ground but stared up at her defiantly. "Apologize to Chloe." Roxy was so mad she started punching a nearby dumpster. Chloe was out of school for several days, and since I was miserable, I went to provoke Roxy every single day. Before long, a new rumor started spreading, that I had a crush on Roxy. I was now known as the school's biggest simp, who jumped from one girl to the next. But I didn't care what people said, as long as I could get my dose of good luck. In just a few days of getting beaten up by Roxy, I'd almost made enough for a down payment on an apartment. On the 7th day, right before the holiday break, the weather got so cold you could see your breath. I washed my hair that morning but didn't have time to dry it, so I went to school with it still damp. By the time I got to class, it was half dry, and I saw that Chloe was back. She was at her desk reading, and after not seeing her for a few days, she looked even more beautiful than I remembered. Hearing me approach, she looked up. She seemed surprised to see me. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heart pounding. After a moment's hesitation, I managed a small smile. "You're back." She gave a slight nod in response. I had a million things I wanted to say, but I figured it would just annoy her. So, I swallowed them all and went back to my seat in silence. The tension between us was thick. Chloe glanced at me. "New haircut?" she asked suddenly. Was she actually concerned about me? My heart fluttered for a second before I calmed myself down. She was probably just asking because I'd also gotten contacts and looked different. I smiled faintly. Just felt like a change. "It looks good," she said, looking down, her breathing soft. "What about you?" I asked. "Why were you out for so long?" "Acute appendicitis. I was in the hospital for a few days." My hand froze, and I stared at her in shock. She said it so casually, as if it were nothing, and went back to looking at her textbook. I just nodded and pulled out my own book, a hollow feeling in my chest. I really had never been part of her world. I didn't have her number. I knew nothing about her past. I had no right to know when her birthday was, or when she was sick. I heard, Chloe said suddenly, looking at me while fiddling with her pen cap, that you've been spending a lot of time with Roxy from the other class. It was surprising to hear Roxy's name come from her lips. I couldn't believe she'd already heard the rumors. I gave an embarrassed laugh. Yeah, well, I had to talk to her about something. You should stay away from her, Chloe said, her eyes cast down on her textbook, her expression unreadable. The SATs are coming up. Don't let a rebel like her ruin your future. What was this now? Was she trying to save me from a bad path? Didn't she find me annoying? Why would she say something like that? I had no idea what was going on in her head, and I was too scared to ask, so I just kept quiet. Thanks, I finally said. I know. I've got it under control. The entire day was painfully awkward between Chloe and me. I was in a foul mood, so when school was about to end, I went to find Roxy. But this time, she'd already left. I didn't get my fix, and I felt antsy and out of sorts. On my way out of the school gates, a guy from Roxy's class helpfully pointed. Hey, Ethan bro, Roxy's in the back alley. Ethan bro? I didn't have time to question the weird nickname. I just took off running toward the alley. The alley was dimly lit. Roxy was on the phone with her back to me, and I could hear a man's voice on speaker, probably her dad. Why are you calling? I'm busy, he said. Dad, Roxy said, I need you to arrange a school transfer for me. Why? Everything's fine. Why would you transfer? Roxy was quiet for a second. I'm being bullied, she said. There was a long pause on the other end. Okay, who did you bully? Her dad asked. I'm the one being bullied, Roxy yelled, sounding exasperated. I can't explain it to you. Just get it done. She hung up, frustrated, and spun around, her eyes widening as if she'd seen a ghost. I ran over and grabbed her collar. What are you doing? Where do you think you're going? Oh my God, just leave me alone. I'm begging you, she pleaded. No way. I'm telling you, you're not going anywhere. I'll follow you wherever you go. Roxy looked like she was about to explode. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore and shoved me with all her might. I stumbled backward. My foot missed the ground, and I realized too late that I was at the top of a short flight of stairs filled with discarded furniture. I tumbled down with a loud crash, my body hitting the broken desks and chairs. The pain was so sharp it brought tears to my eyes. Roxy looked shocked and started to move toward me, but someone else shoved past her. I looked up, surprised, as Chloe rushed to my side. She stood in front of me, silhouetted against the dim alley light, her face in shadow. I could only see the small puffs of mist from her breath disappearing into the cold air. Are you okay? She asked. I think so, I said, trying to get up. A sharp pain shot through my ankle and I collapsed back down. As I tried again, Chloe grabbed my arm and pulled me to my feet, her other arm steadying me by my shoulder. We were so close it was almost an embrace. My ears were ringing, and I could feel my face getting hot. Chloe looked up at Roxy, her voice tense. Don't you think you've gone too far? I've gone too far? Roxy looked from Chloe to me, gritting her teeth in frustration. She kicked the wall, took a few seconds to compose herself, then shot us one last resentful glare before storming off. Her friends, who were waiting nearby, swarmed her. You want us to take care of him? One asked. Just get lost, she yelled at them. I watched until the alley was empty. Chloe's voice was stiff. Let's go. I'm taking you to the hospital. You don't have to. It's not that bad. I'll be fine by tomorrow. She stared at me, her eyes full of unspoken words. After a moment of silence, she finally burst out, Why are you chasing after a rebel? I froze, meeting her intense gaze. I thought she found me annoying. Why did she care who I was chasing? It was only then that I realized how much it had bothered me when she'd called me annoying. I looked down and said, just to be contrary, I feel like dating someone. It's none of your business. She let out a sharp, angry laugh. You want to date someone that badly? You don't care if she beats you black and blue. You've got her all wrong, I retorted. I don't get beaten up like this every day. What just happened was an accident. She's not actually a bad person. You shouldn't judge people by how they look. Enough, she cried, grabbing my shoulders and pinning me against the wall. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Ethan, how could you become like this? I'd never seen her so emotional. I was completely stunned. She stared at me, biting her lip. Stop debasing yourself. You said you wanted to date someone, right? Then date me, okay? The alley was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I felt like I could hear both of our hearts pounding. She was so close, it felt like we were about to kiss. Her gaze slowly drifted down to my lips, I just stared at her, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Who's over there?" A security guard's voice called out. We both jumped and scrambled apart. Chloe wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm sorry, I don't know what just came over me. It's fine," I stammered. "I didn't really hear what you said anyway. I should get home." I finished quickly and then limped out of the alley as fast as I could. Chloe silently watched me go, waiting a long time before she slowly walked out of the alley herself. Back home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I couldn't get the look in her eyes out of my head. We had been so close to kissing. Maybe it was just a heat of the moment thing in the dark alley. She'd probably regret it by morning. How could she possibly like me? How could anyone? I took a deep breath, fighting back the lump in my throat, and buried myself under the covers. After what felt like half the night, I finally fell asleep. The next day at school, Chloe arrived late. She walked in, sat down in silence, and seemed to bring a chill into the room with her. Neither of us said a word to the other. After how awkward things got last night, I couldn't blame her for avoiding me. I tried my best not to let my mind wander and poured all my energy into studying. With finals and the SATs just around the corner, nothing else mattered. During the dinner break, I stayed at my desk, munching on a sandwich I'd brought from home and continuing to work through practice tests. Tonight, I was working on a notoriously difficult practice math exam. The final question was a beast, with a prompt that was hundreds of words long. I stared at it for ages without a clue how to start. The back door was open and people kept trickling out. The last two girls to leave were chatting as they walked out. "Someone just saw Julian Hayes by the entrance," one said. "Probably here for Chloe, right? Who else would he be here for?" I froze, my pen hovering over the paper. I felt ridiculous. Of course, things were impossible between Chloe and me. The classroom was completely empty now, except for me. I stared at the test paper, feeling completely dejected. After a moment, I took a deep breath, forced myself to refocus, and got back to the problem. I still couldn't solve it, and I started to get frustrated. The more frustrated I got, the harder it was to think. I finally had a breakthrough, but after working through the calculations, I realized I'd made a mistake somewhere. I ran my hands through my hair, trying to figure out where I'd gone wrong. Suddenly, a cool, clear voice came from behind me. "That's not right. You shouldn't solve it that way." I jumped, and when I turned, Chloe was already beside me, leaning over and taking the pen from my hand. "You missed this piece of information," she said. She was leaning so close she almost enveloped me. Holding my pen, she began to rapidly sketch out the solution on my scratch paper. The answer became clearer and clearer with each stroke. I didn't dare to move a muscle. How long had she been there? Had she been watching me this whole time? "Do you get it now?" she asked. I snapped out of my daze and nodded. "Yeah, good. The second part of the question shouldn't be too hard for you then." She straightened up but didn't leave, just fiddled with the pen in her hand. She looked at me, hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "Ethan, I want to apologize for how I acted last night. I was so surprised I shot to my feet trying to play it cool. It's fine, really. Like I said, I didn't even hear you. Don't worry about it." "No, that's not it," she said. "I'm apologizing for confessing to you and then running away like a coward." It was like a lightning bolt struck my brain. I felt like I suddenly couldn't understand English. What did she mean? What was she saying? "I'm sure I confused you last night, so I want to say it again, properly this time." She took another breath. "Ethan, I like you. Will you be my boyfriend?" I was speechless. A wave of complicated, bittersweet emotions washed over me, and tears started streaming down my face before I could stop them. I quickly wiped my face, trying to force a laugh. "What are you talking about? Is this an April Fool's joke?" "Roxy came to see me," she said suddenly. "She told me you weren't chasing her. She told me the only reason you kept provoking her was to get her to apologize to me." My mind went blank. What was Roxy thinking? Why would she tell Chloe all that? I felt a fresh wave of misery. "Don't read too much into it," I choked out. "I had my own reasons for going after her." "Is that why you're saying this? Because you feel like you owe me something? Chloe, don't you hate me? You said I was annoying, you told me to stay away from you. What was all that about?" She stared at me, her eyes welling up again, her voice faint. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for saying those things. I never hated you. I only said that because I thought you still liked Olivia. I thought you were only getting close to me to make her jealous. I'm so sorry." I was stunned. Felt like a tidal wave was crashing through my mind. It was because of Olivia? It was all because of Olivia. So that was it. I finally remembered. Her sudden coldness toward me had started right after that incident with Olivia on the balcony. And that night Caleb came to visit, I thought I'd seen her reflection in the window, but when I turned, no one was there. I thought I'd imagined it, but it had really been her. She had heard everything, and it had been bothering her this whole time. I looked at her, my vision blurring with tears. Then, what about Julian? He's my half-brother, she explained. We're not that close, actually. He just came to ask me to go visit my mom. And you said my cronets were gross? I'm sorry, she said sheepishly. That was the only part that was true. I started crying even harder. She looked completely panicked, not knowing what to do. I finally managed to ask, so, what you said before, about us getting together, does that offer still stand? Of course, she said, then gave a self-deprecating smile. But, you've probably heard the rumors. Getting too close to me brings bad luck. No, it doesn't, I said, pulling her into a hug. You have no idea how much good luck you've brought me. She froze for a second, then hugged me back, tightly. Later that night, I found out what had happened that afternoon. When Chloe went to meet Julian, Roxy had seen them together. She assumed they were on a date, and the more she thought about it, the angrier she got. She stormed right up and confronted Chloe. I said one bad thing about you, and now I have to get humiliated by Ethan every single day, telling me I'm not fit to lick your boots. He won't leave me alone until I apologize to you. And here you are, on a date with some other guy. How could you do that to Ethan? Those were Roxy's exact words. I couldn't imagine the look on her face when she said that. I also had no idea why she was suddenly sticking up for me. Maybe I'd beaten some sense into her? In any case, it was after hearing all that Chloe decided to come back to the classroom to find me. I guess I owed Roxy a thank you for getting us together. During study hall, I paid another visit to Roxy's classroom. When she saw me, her first instinct was to duck and hide. I placed a boba tea on her desk. Roxy, I said, thank you. She glanced at the boba, seemed to understand what had happened, and plopped back down in her seat. She leaned back, taking a casual sip. Well, not calling me Blondie anymore. If you prefer it, I can keep calling you that, I offered. Get lost, she said, rolling her eyes. She was actually a pretty decent person. You're a good person, Roxy. I am not a good person, she retorted, turning her head away to sip her boba, refusing to look at me. I just smiled and walked away. After school, I walked Chloe to her bus stop. We stood side by side, waiting for her bus to arrive. Are you sure you don't want me to walk you all the way home? I'm sure, she said. My mom waits for me at the stop. If she saw you, I'd be dead. All right then, I said, leaning against the bus stop sign with a small sigh. It had just rained, and there were puddles along the curb. A car came speeding down the street. I quickly pulled Chloe out of the way just as it sent a huge spray of water onto the sidewalk where she'd been standing. Watch out, I said. We were so close, almost kissing. My face flushed and my heart pounded in my chest. I didn't dare move. Her gaze drifted down to my lips, her eyes soft and mesmerizing. Slowly, her face grew larger in my vision as her lips moved closer and closer to mine. The screech of brakes cut through the air as the bus pulled up to the curb. I snapped out of my trance and quickly took a step back. You should hurry and get on. But she grabbed my arm, pulling me toward her. She gave me a quick, soft kiss on the lips and then let go. It happened so fast I barely had time to register it. See you tomorrow, she said with a wave. I stood there and watched her bus get smaller and smaller until it disappeared from view. And just like that, Chloe and I were secretly together, studying side by side, pushing each other to be better. After we started dating, I discovered that Chloe actually loved to laugh. Whenever I talked to her, she'd be looking at me with a smile on her face. On the 5th major test, I scored a 620, which put me at 19th in the entire senior class. The day the new honor roll was posted, I dragged Chloe to go see it with me. When no teachers were looking, I snuck out my phone and took a bunch of pictures. It was my first time ranking so high, and I had to document the occasion. Chloe looked a little exasperated but just shook her head and smiled as I took my photos. On the way back to class, I babbled on and on about a weird dream I had the night before. She listened patiently, chiming in with a teasing comment here and there. As we got to the 2nd floor, a boy I didn't recognize ran up to us. Chloe, he mumbled, his head down, looking extremely nervous. He held out a letter. This is for you. Chloe started to refuse. I'm sorry, but the boy just shoved the letter into her hands and ran off. It wasn't the first time a guy had confessed to Chloe, but who gives paper love letters these days? Feeling a pang of jealousy, I snatched it from her. Let me see what he wrote. Chloe sighed, looking helpless. Don't read it, just throw it away. No, I want to see. Maybe I can learn a thing or two, I teased. She sighed again and tried to grab it back, but I held it out of reach, playfully opening the envelope as we walked up the stairs. Dear Chloe, I hope this letter finds you well. Ooh, fancy, I read aloud. Stop reading it, just throw it away. Let me just see. Chloe, you probably don't know who I am, but that's not important. I really, really like you. I know other people don't like you, and that everyone who gets close to you has bad luck. I stopped walking, my voice trailing off. And I know you forced Mason Reed to jump off the roof. The words on the page felt like tiny hammers pounding against my chest. Chloe froze, her face paling as if she'd just fallen into an abyss. Don't read that, she cried, snatching the letter from me. She tore it into tiny pieces and frantically threw them in the trash. I'd never seen her like this before. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably. Who was Mason Reed? And why would that guy write something so horrible? I hesitated for a second, then spun around and sprinted back downstairs. But no matter where I looked, the guy was gone. Chloe changed after that. It was like she had fallen back into that endless darkness again. Back in the classroom, she started grinding through practice problems with a frantic energy, not saying a word, as if it was the only way she could find any peace. I didn't push her to talk about it. I figured she needed some space. That night, I got on my dad's computer and searched for the name Mason Reed, but nothing came up. After thinking for a bit, I decided to check the online forums for her old high school, figuring I might find some answers there. After scrolling through countless threads, I finally found a mention of Mason Reed in the comments section of an old post. As I slowly read through the comments, I felt a growing sense of dread. The thread was filled with vicious, hateful comments directed at Chloe. I had to force myself to ignore the vitriol and search for actual information. It turned out Mason Reed had been the president of the honors class at her old school. Last October, he had jumped from the school roof. He had landed on an awning over the first floor, which saved his life, but he'd been in a coma ever since. According to the commenters, just a few hours before he jumped, Mason had told a friend he was planning to confess his feelings to Chloe. He jumped right after she left him on the roof. Chloe forced him to jump, one comment read. Maybe she even pushed him herself. An account with the username Leah F. had posted repeatedly. You guys don't know Chloe. She's a jinx. Everyone in her class knew it. She acts all prim and proper, but behind your back, she's vicious. She constantly insults guys, and not a single boy who ever liked her escaped her cruelty. I stared at the screen, reading those horrible accusations. I just couldn't reconcile that image of a cruel manipulator with the Chloe I knew. In the middle of the night, I shut down the computer. I decided I had to ask Chloe about it myself. Early the next morning, I went to Chloe's neighborhood. I hadn't told her I was coming. I waited at the entrance and watched her walk out, looking completely alone, her eyes shadowed and dull. She was clearly surprised to see me. Before, she would have been happy. But now, she just walked up to me and asked, "Why are you here?" "I want you to tell me about Mason Reed," I said. She froze for a second, then gave a bitter smile. "What? You think I'm the one who made him jump, too?" "No," I said quickly. "That's not it. I just want to help." "I didn't push him," she said, her voice trembling. Her eyes filled with tears, and the tip of her nose was red from the cold. "When I left, he was perfectly fine. He told me he wouldn't give up, that he'd study hard so we could meet at the top. I really, truly don't know why he would jump." She started to cry, tears streaming down her pale face. Maybe it really is my fault," she sobbed. "Maybe I really am cursed. Everyone who gets close to me has something bad happen to them. Maybe it was because she always seemed so mature and put together that I could never imagine her crying. But she was just like me, only 17. She could feel hurt and pain just like anyone else." "No, don't say that," I said, gently pulling her into a hug. "I know you didn't push him. I believe you. Chloe, please don't blame yourself. I'll be here with you, okay?" You really believe me?" she whispered. "Of course I do." She was quiet for a moment, then her arms wrapped around me, holding on tightly as she trembled. After our last day of classes before the holiday break, I decided to use the 3-day weekend to do something. I went back to her old school's online forum and, after asking around, managed to find out which hospital Mason was in. On the first day of the break, I went to the hospital alone without telling anyone. Mason had been there for 6 months, and it seemed like he'd had a lot of visitors. When I mentioned his name to the nurse at the front desk, she nodded with a look of recognition. "Are you one of his classmates?" she asked. "Yes, I am," I lied. "He's in room 9 on the 16th floor. Elevators are to the left." "Thank you." I got to the 16th floor carrying a bag of bananas. The hallway was crowded with cots and temporary beds for family members staying with patients. I walked past several rooms until I found number 9. It was outside of visiting hours, so I could only look in through the small window in the door. On the bed closest to the window, a boy my age was lying still. After watching for a moment, I was sure it was Mason. He was so much thinner than he looked in the pictures online. With his eyes closed, he just looked like he was sleeping. "You're here," a woman's voice said from behind me. I jumped, but when I turned, I saw she was speaking to another girl, not to me. "It's the first day of the break. As his good friend, of course I had to come see him," the girl said. "Thank you," the woman replied, wiping her eyes. "You kids have been so good to Mason. He'd be so happy to know. But you're a little late. Visiting hours are over for today." "That's okay. I just wanted to see him for a minute," the girl said, looking through the window. "Ma'am," she asked, "has there been any change with Mason? Do they know when he might wake up?" At that, the woman broke down, shaking her head as tears streamed down her face. "The doctors don't know. They said he might be like this forever. But I just can't give up on him." "I see," the girl said, glancing back at Mason with a complicated expression. Then she quickly turned back to the woman. "He'll pull through," she said reassuringly. "He's strong. He'll get better soon." "Thank you," the woman sobbed, too choked up to say more. The girl set down a basket of flowers and checked her phone. "Well, I should get going, ma'am. Please take care of yourself." The woman just nodded, sinking onto the cot and crying silently. A few moments later, a doctor came and called her away. I stood there, staring through the window at Mason. He was so young. Was he really never going to wake up? For a second, I thought I saw something move. It looked like one of his fingers had twitched. "Hello." I looked around for a doctor or nurse, but the hallway was empty. I pressed my face to the glass, watching intently, but after a long wait, Mason remained perfectly still. Had I just imagined it? Feeling disappointed, I stepped back from the door. I left the bananas on the empty cot and left the hospital. The next morning, my house was filled with noisy relatives visiting for the holiday. I used studying as an excuse to grab my backpack and get out of the house. Ever since my grades improved, my mom never questioned me when I said I had to study. I went to a coffee shop near the school. A few minutes after I sat down, Chloe walked in. "Are you cold?" she asked, seeing me shiver, and she squeezed into the booth next to me. I hesitated for a second before asking, "Chloe, do you want to go see Mason?" Her hand, which had been reaching for her menu, froze mid-air. "I went to see him yesterday," I said. "I have a feeling he's going to wake up." "Chloe, do you want to go see him? I've heard that people in comas can still be aware of their surroundings. He liked you. Maybe if you talk to him, it could help. And if he wakes up, your name will be cleared, right?" Her eyes clouded over, but I knew she wanted to go. She just couldn't bring herself to face him. After a long silence, Chloe finally nodded. On the last day of the break, Chloe and I went to the hospital together. We had just gotten out of the cab when Chloe suddenly froze. I looked up and saw the girl from the other day, the one who had been visiting Mason. She had a few other people with her this time. The girl, whose name I now remembered was Leah, smirked at Chloe. Well, if it isn't the great Chloe Sterling. What brings you here?" Chloe's eyes turned to ice. "What do you want, Leah?" I could feel Chloe's hand trembling in mine. "Chloe, let's just go," I said, tugging her arm, wanting to get away from them. But Leah and her friends moved to block our path. "Leaving so soon?" Leah said, her knuckles cracking as she clenched her fists. "You've been hiding for months. Now that I've finally found you, do you really think I'm just going to let you walk away?" This was getting bad. I quickly stepped in front of Chloe. "What are you doing?" "I'll call the cops." "Did I say I was going to do anything?" Leah sneered, taking a slow step closer. Chloe silently pulled me behind her. "Ethan, you should go home." "Go home? Why would I go home?" I refused to budge. Leah's group was closing in. There was no way Chloe could handle all four of them if things got physical. Just as I was starting to panic, a moped zipped past us, skidded about 30 feet, and then stopped abruptly. The rider kicked their feet against the pavement, backing the moped up toward us. "What's going on here?" the rider asked, getting off and taking off her helmet. It was Roxy. She looked at Leah. "What are you doing here, wannabe?" I stared in shock. "Just passing by," Roxy said, flipping her hair and turning her gaze on Leah's group. "What's the problem? You looking for a fight?" Leah sneered. "Mind your own business." Roxy laughed. "You guys from Northwood are trying to start something with one of us from University High, and you're telling me to mind my own business?" She cracked her knuckles, tossed her helmet aside, and pulled a baseball bat out from her moped's storage compartment. Her eyes were blazing. "You want to test that theory?" Leah froze, clearly recognizing that Roxy was the real deal and not someone to mess with. Then, she suddenly broke into a smile. "Whoa, what's all this? Who said anything about fighting? She turned to Chloe. We're friends, aren't we? We wouldn't fight. You just wanted to see Mason, right? Come on, I'll take you. She tried to casually pat Chloe's shoulder, but Chloe sidestepped her. Leah didn't seem fazed and just waved us forward. Come on, I'll take you to see Mason. I couldn't believe how fast she could switch personalities, but since we were here to see Mason anyway, and she wasn't stopping us, we followed her inside. Roxy, probably sensing more trouble, came with us. When we got to the ward, Leah called out, Mrs. Reed. Mason's mother turned, and when she saw Chloe, her expression hardened. What are you doing here? Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Leah turn away and hide a small, triumphant smile. I was furious and worried for Chloe, but she just gently pushed my hand down and walked toward Mrs. Reed by herself. Mrs. Reed. A sharp crack echoed in the hallway as the woman's hand connected with Chloe's face. Chloe's head snapped to the side, a red handprint already forming on her cheek. Get out, Mrs. Reed screamed. You are not welcome here. Chloe's expression was somber. Ma'am, I just want to see Mason. Haven't you done enough damage to my son? What more do you want? My heart ached for Chloe, and I started to move forward, but Roxy held me back. Standing in the doorway, Chloe's eyes were red as she looked at Mrs. Reed, her voice trembling. Ma'am, I know you hate me, but I swear, I didn't push Mason, and I never said anything cruel to him. The day he talked to me, all I told him was that we should both focus on studying for our final year. Do you know what he said to me? I don't want to know, Mrs. Reed sobbed, but Chloe looked at her with a determined expression. He said he wouldn't give up. He said he would study hard so we could meet at the top. Ma'am, Mason was a good person. I would never have pushed him, and I don't believe someone so determined would just jump for no reason. If he could hear us, he wouldn't want you to hate the wrong person. Please, just let me see him. Mrs. Reed covered her face, crying, but she finally stepped aside. As we entered the room, a doctor was making his rounds. Chloe asked him, when do you think he'll wake up? The doctor just shook his head. It's hard to say. The patient has shown no signs of improvement. The room fell silent, a heavy mood settling over everyone. But in the corner, I saw Leah with a strange, almost crazed smile on her face. It vanished in an instant, replaced by a look of righteous anger, so quickly that I thought I must have imagined it. Are you satisfied now, Chloe? Leah sneered. After what you did to Mason, you still have the nerve to show your face here? She was so obnoxious that even Roxy couldn't take it. This is a hospital. Shut your mouth. Have some respect. Leah didn't get angry, just stood back with her arms crossed, fanning the flames. Mrs. Reed, she's seen him. Make her leave. I'm sure Mason wouldn't want her anywhere near him. Mrs. Reed, who already wanted Chloe gone, took the cue. You can go now, she said. Chloe hesitated. Just let me say one thing to him. She leaned over the bed, looking at Mason's still face. Her voice was soft. Mason, stop sleeping in. It's time to get better, okay? You promised we'd meet at the top. Don't break your promise. Hearing this, Mrs. Reed's eyes welled up with fresh tears. Chloe straightened up and looked at me. Let's go. I followed her, but as I reached the door, I glanced back one last time and froze in my tracks. What is it? Chloe asked. I stared intently at Mason. Did he just move? Leah froze. That's impossible, she said, whipping her head around to look, her eyes wide with panic and disbelief. Ethan, did you really see something? Chloe asked. Yes, he moved again, I yelled, pointing at Mason. Just as I shouted, the heart monitor next to his bed started beeping rapidly. Chloe was the first to react, sprinting out of the room. Doctor, nurse. A team of medical staff rushed in, and we all crowded around the bed. A few seconds later, Mrs. Reed cried out, He's moving! Mason is really moving! We were all ecstatic, watching as Mason's fingers twitched, as if he were trying to break free of something. After a moment of tense silence, he slowly opened his eyes. Everyone was overjoyed. It was only after the initial excitement died down that I realized Leah was gone. I ran out of the room and saw her sprinting down the hall. Chloe, Leah's running. Chloe didn't hesitate, taking off after her like an arrow. Roxy saw what was happening and took off running with me right behind her. Leah ran like her life depended on it, down several flights of stairs, but she was no match for Roxy. As Leah reached the first-floor landing, Roxy simply vaulted over the second-floor railing, landing in front of her and cutting her off. Where do you think you're going? Roxy asked. Leah was shaking like a leaf but managed a weak smile. I just had to use the restroom. You run like that to use the restroom? Get back upstairs, Roxy ordered, grabbing Leah by the arm and dragging her toward the elevator. Back in the 16th floor ward, the moment we walked in with Leah, Every eye in the room turned to us, including Mason's. He stared directly at Leah, and a hoarse, strained voice came from his throat. "It was her," he rasped. "She pushed me." Leah crumpled to the floor. 2 minutes later, the sound of police sirens filled the air. Leah was arrested. At the station, she confessed to everything. She and Chloe had been friends since the start of high school. But Chloe's life seemed perfect. She came from a wealthy family, she was beautiful, her grades were better, and even the guy Leah had a crush on was in love with Chloe. Leah didn't think she was a bad person, but next to Chloe, she felt like a nobody. Over the years, her jealousy twisted into a deep-seated hatred. She pretended to be Chloe's friend to her face, but behind her back, she spread vicious rumors. That Chloe was a jinx and brought bad luck to everyone around her. That she was secretly a cruel person who mocked any boy who ever had a crush on her. Last year, Mason had approached Leah. Because everyone thought she was Chloe's best friend, he asked for advice on what Chloe liked, telling her he was planning to confess his feelings. Leah knew Chloe often went to the roof for quiet, so she told Mason to find her there. On the day he went to confess, Leah secretly followed them. She hadn't planned to do anything at first, but after Chloe left, she saw Mason sitting alone on the edge of the roof, looking dejected. On a dark impulse, she walked up behind him and pushed. Everyone knew the rest of the story. Mason was critically injured and fell into a coma. Everyone blamed Chloe. They figured even if she hadn't pushed him, she had driven him to it, and the harassment became so bad she was forced to transfer schools. All the while Mason was in the hospital, Leah lived in constant fear that he would wake up and expose her. She visited him regularly, only able to sleep after reassuring herself that he was showing no signs of waking. The day we went to see Mason, she had planned to use the opportunity to humiliate Chloe one last time. She never imagined that Mason, who the doctors had given a very low chance of recovery, would suddenly wake up. The truth was finally out, and now she would have to face the legal consequences. A few days after Leah's arrest, we went to visit Mason again. He was doing much better and could already speak clearly. As we were leaving, Chloe smiled at him. "Get well soon, Mason." He smiled back. "Finals are coming up. You and your boyfriend better study hard." I had been trying to keep a low profile, afraid of upsetting him, but he had figured it out on his own. He just smiled. "I'm happy for you guys. And thank you." He really was a good guy. I nodded and said our goodbyes. As we left the hospital, Roxy hopped on her moped. "Thanks for all your help these past few days," I said. She gave me a lazy grin. "What? Are you gonna give me a Good Samaritan award? How about I buy you dinner?" "Nah, I've got plans," she said. I said earnestly, "You should probably stop getting into fights, Roxy. Finals are right around the corner." "Who said anything about a fight? I'm gonna play a game. You two should call a ride. My moped doesn't have room for 3. She put on her helmet, and with a rev of the engine, she was gone. Chloe and I watched her disappear down the street, then held hands and started walking slowly. "See," I said, "who says you're a jinx? You're obviously a lucky charm. Mason woke up the second you showed up." Chloe laughed softly. "Maybe he woke up because of you." "Nope, it was definitely you," I insisted. I hesitated for a long moment, then decided there was something I had to tell her. "Chloe, you know how you wondered why I suddenly started following you around?" I stopped walking and took a deep breath. "The truth is, I discovered that every time I touched you, something good would happen to me. So at first, I was only getting close to you to borrow your good luck. But then things changed." My voice trailed off. "Why aren't you saying anything? Are you mad at me?" She was quiet for a long time. Then, she wrapped her arms around me. "If that's true," she whispered, "then I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that I was the one who could bring you good luck. And I'm so glad that I'm the one who gets to be with you now." The evening sun was warm and bright. A gentle spring breeze blew past, feeling incredibly soft against my skin. In May, the first cicadas of the year began to sing on campus. Summer is the season for cicadas. They spend years dormant and unseen underground, waiting for their moment in the sun, waiting to finally make their presence known. After my SAT practice scores hit 640, my progress slowed to a crawl. I fought for every single point. Chloe suggested that maybe my earlier score jumps weren't because of her good luck, but because I was finally achieving the scores I was always capable of. She thought 640 was probably my true baseline, which was why it was so much harder to improve from there. I felt a little discouraged, but I refused to accept that limit and kept grinding through practice tests, determined to fight for every last point. In June, after my last final exam, I ran out of the testing center. Chloe had finished early and was already waiting for me by the school gate. When she saw me, she opened her arms, and I ran right into them. In late June, our scores were released. I got a 666, far better than I had ever hoped for. Chloe got into Stanford and I got into a great university nearby. We both had bright futures ahead of us.